Today I'm creating some simple winter DIYs and decorating a few areas in my home for the after Christmas winter season. Hey there, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa, where I love to share high-end home decor and DIYs on a budget, as well as extreme before and after room transformations. After the Christmas season is over and we begin to take down our Christmas decorations, our homes can feel a little empty and a little bland. So it's nice to add a few touches of winter decor throughout so we can continue enjoying the winter months and enjoy nice winter decor for the season. So this is what I'm sharing with you today. I love changing up my wreaths on my front door, and I had these 2 wire wreath frames that you can get at your local dollar store, and one of them happened to fit right inside the other, so I thought I'd join them together using very small zip ties. One of them was just going to be too thin for this look. After the zip ties were secured, I cut off the excess pieces. Since this wreath was going to be white, I went ahead and spray painted it with some leftover spray paint that I had in my stash, and I did both the front and the back of it. For the next step, I got this thick yarn that I bought at Hobby Lobby, and it was on sale for 30% off, so it was just under $5. Next, you're going to take 3 pieces that you pre-measured and you're going to tape them down and create a braid. When you measure these out to cut them for length, you're going to want to wrap them around your wreath and then wrap them over a little bit more onto itself, about 1/4 of the way, as indicated by the red arrows. Now, the reason you have to add a little bit more is because when you braid them, you will actually shrink the length, and it might not be as long as you need it if you don't add a little bit extra to those yarn pieces. Once you're finished with your braid, you're going to want to lay it on top of the wreath. I started on the exterior of it and I worked my way inward. Now I did 1 line at a time. And I simply applied hot glue on small sections of the wire wreath and pressed the yarn down on top of it. When I reach the other end, I make sure that the end pieces are nice and braided down. Then I hot glue it as close as possible to the other end and cut off any excess, and just tuck those end pieces downward and inward and hot glue the 2 pieces together. Because the yarn is so fluffy, you can barely even tell that that's the end piece. Next, you're going to do the same thing with the next braid. Now, because I wanted some different texture, I decided to go in the opposite direction of the braid so that you have one going one way, one another way, and then the final one on the inside will be going the same direction as the outer braid. Once the second one is done, you can start on your third. And as you can see, 3 braids around this form wreath is the perfect size to cover the entire wire form, and you'll only need 1 roll of this yarn if you wish to do something like this yourself with some yarn left over. I knew I wanted some winter greenery, and I picked up these picks at Hobby Lobby on clearance from their after Christmas sale, and I thought these would be perfect. You can either buy something like this, or you can actually use anything that you have remaining from your Christmas stash. And what I like to do before I glue anything down is kind of lay it out on my wreath to make sure that everything looks nice, and then I start to hot glue it. Now here I have just a mixture of pine with pine cones as well as some really shiny eucalyptus leaves. Now I don't need that long pick stem, so I just took some wire cutters and I cut them down. And then using some hot glue, I adhered them onto the wreath. Now, because you are hot gluing it onto the yarn portion of the wreath, it is good to add hot glue on several areas of the pick, and it kind of helps keep them in place, not only on the wreath, but it also allows you to kind of form them the way you want them to show on your wreath. So it'll give you a chance to open up the leaves, open up the branches, and keep them in place. Next, I had some ribbon that I had left over from last spring, and because of the neutral burlap and the white stripes, I thought it would be perfect for this. I didn't have enough to make a large bow, so I do end up creating a burlap bow for the back of it to give it a little bit more presence on the wreath. That way it doesn't look too small. And then I simply attach the bows onto the wreath with some hot glue. And because the wire is on the back side of the yarn, you don't need to add anything additional in order to hang it. And this is pretty much it for this one. And for this next DIY, you're just going to use some leftover fuzzy fabric, whether it's faux fur fabric or the little white washcloths that you can find at your local Dollar Tree. Now, this DIY is perfect when you want to add a seasonal touch to candle holders or vases that you may have in your home. Now, what you see me doing here is cutting it into a large 5-inch wide piece because this is going to go around a fairly large seagrass vase. Now, I did put it up against the vase and see that it was a little bit too wide, so I went ahead and cut it down to 3 inches in width. And this looked much better. And so once I was happy, I wrapped it around and hot glued the two end pieces together. And as you can see, this isn't anything that's permanent, so you can change up the looks of any vase for the winter time as often as you like. In order to coordinate with my wreath, I thought I'd add a strip of burlap and place it on top of the white furry fabric. And then I hot glued a couple of sprigs from those picks that I used on my wreath that were left over, and that was it for this DIY. For this next DIY, I'm going to be using these pillowcases that I bought at Hobby Lobby for 50% off. So each of these was $2.75. So you can't beat that. Usually I make my own, but this was totally worth it to buy them pre-made. And next, I'll be using some of this heavy duty ribbon that I also got for 50% off at Hobby Lobby. It's not really ribbon per se. It's more like those handles that you get on inexpensive burlap sacks, and it was perfect for this, I thought. And next, I began to create the snowflake form on the front of the pillow cover. And I wasn't following any type of pattern. I was just kind of freehanding this and just making the little end pieces of the snowflake. Now, I did end up making the actual pattern of the snowflake on the pillow cushion a little bit smaller than what you see here. Now, whenever I create custom pillow cushion covers, I always sew them. However, these were already pre-made, and it was going to be a little bit hard to get the pillow cushion open and fitted through the sleeve of my sewing machine and then adhering all of these. So I decided to use some fabric glue for this. Not hot glue, fabric glue. And so as you saw, I started with the base pieces of the snowflake, and then I began to add the smaller little pieces at the ends. each Snowflake pillow cover only cost $4 to make because I already had that fabric glue left over. All you do is let the glue dry and your pillow covers are complete. And don't forget to like this video if you are enjoying it, and subscribe so that you too can become a part of the familia. For this next DIY, I'm going to be making over this little stand. I made this a few years ago in my last house for another video, and all I did was put together a wood round and an unfinished wood candlestick from Michaels, glued them together and painted them. I don't use buffalo check too much in my decor, and honestly I hadn't been using this little stand for a while, so I thought I would make it a little bit more useful and pair it up with one of my cloches from IKEA. As you saw, I started by sanding down the paint finish to get it nice and smooth, and then I ordered these half round wood beads from Amazon, and I'll link to them below. I love them because these come in so many different sizes and you can apply them on so many different things. I placed them all around the top to make sure that I had enough of the half beads to go all the way around, but I did plan on putting them on the exterior of the wood round, not on the top. And I did end up needing to have more anyways because those are two different measurements. For the stand, I'm going to be using Debbie's Design Diaries Sandy Blonde DIY paint. Now, if you've never heard of this type of paint, this is actually a clay-based paint with only 9 ingredients, no VOCs, no acrylic or latex in it. It really does give a super nice finish to all your projects, and it is highly pigmented. Now, in most cases, for a little project like this, usually one coat is enough. I did go back just a little bit and add a little bit more paint in some areas to make sure that I got absolutely every nook and crevice. Next, in order to seal the piece, I use some of Debbie's clear wax. I love this wax. This is pretty much the only wax I ever use on any of my projects. And it's no odor, it goes on so smooth, and it's really buttery and soft, unlike most waxes. And as a matter of fact, I got to meet Debbie this past month. It was so fun to finally get to meet her in person. She's been inspiring me for quite a while here on YouTube, and it was nice to actually get to see her in action and create something live at a workshop last month. And I also got to meet Dion over at the Turquoise Iris, who is one of the most amazing furniture artists you will ever meet. Definitely check these ladies out on YouTube if you have not done so already, and stay tuned for some possible announcements and fun surprises in the future. I'll have their channels in my description box. But as you can see here, the wax brings out that color's richness and just deepens it so beautifully. And I made sure to do every single corner of the stand. Now, I get asked all the time why I use a wax. Not only does it enrichen the color, because these colors do tend to dry kind of light and matte, but it also protects your surface. And you want that because you don't want to ever damage your paint job and maybe even reactivate the paint if anything liquid gets dropped on it. Next, what I'm using is some of Debbie's white decrepit dust. I have never used this before, and I've been wanting to because I had an idea of the finish that I wanted for this little stand. And basically, you just sprinkle the dust all over your piece that you are painting. The wax still has to be a little tacky, and what it does is it gets gathered in all of the nooks and crevices. And as you see here, I'm just applying it with a brush, and later on I'll wipe it back to remove the excess. So after I was done with the decrepit dust, I decided to add a little bit more dimension by adding some white wax and started filling in a little bit of the crevices and nooks and also in between the beads. After that, I wiped it off and then I set it to dry. I did the same thing with this wooden ornament from Dollar Tree because I had a smaller cloche. This time I added larger beads around the perimeter. I went in with the same sandy blonde for this one. But this time, after adding the white decrepit, I thought I would change things up a little bit and add some of the dark decrepit just to see what kind of look it would give the paint. Adding the dark decrepit dust does give it a darker, more grayish look. For inside the cloches, I just made simple little cone Christmas trees in the same way that I made the ones for my Christmas tree in my dining room. These are so simple to make with poster board and any yarn that you have on hand. For this next project, you'll need a little bit of greenery, a faux candle, maybe even some ribbon, and some lanterns that you probably have around your home. With the changing of the seasons, we always want something new and fresh to decorate our homes, but in order to keep costs down, sometimes a little change like this is all you need in order to add a little bit of seasonal decor. In this instance, I'm using birch ribbon and I'm just going to wrap it around these faux Dollar Tree candles that I've had for quite some time, and I'm going to add some greenery left over from my Christmas pics. And honestly, that's all there is to it. For this next one, I'm going to be sharing a simple way to decorate your dining table for winter. I love clear glass candle holders and I think they're timeless, and I found these in Hobby Lobby's Christmas clearance. Now, even though these are from their Christmas collection, they are simple and can be used all winter long. Now, I do have an option from Dollar Tree if you cannot find these. I love lamb's ear for spring, but it can also be used for winter since it has that fuzzy white texture all over the leaves. Now, these glass candle holders are from Dollar Tree, and I actually love the way they look. They're a brand new candle holder. I hadn't seen them before, and they have a beautiful shape. Plus, the bottom of it is hollowed out, and you can use it as a shot glass whenever you're not using it as a candle holder. I'm just saying. So I thought I would share these on the table. And because these are much smaller, I went ahead and used 5 instead of 3. You can spray paint these any color you want, but I personally think that crystal clear, they look absolutely gorgeous. So that is the final DIY. I hope you enjoyed each and every one of these. Please make sure to hit like if you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments below which one of these was your favorite. As always, I hope you're well, and I hope to see you next week with another home decor and DIY video. Until then, adios!